Hello, everybody. Welcome to Speaker's Corner. This is part of the Junction 2 Connections live stream that kicks off at 6 p.m. today. I'm Marcus Barnes, and I've got an awesome lineup of people here gathered to discuss the ins and outs of the nightclub industry, what's been happening in terms of the pandemic and the COVID-19 situation. Everyone's going to be offering lots of great insight into their situation and their thoughts and opinions on what's going on. Some negative and also some positive. First of all, I'm going to be starting with Stuart Glen, who is co-founder at The Cause, which, in my opinion, is one of the best new clubs to have hit the London scene. Stuart, how's it going, man? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, there you go. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, 2021's here. It's another year. Hopefully it'll be a bit more positive. It's starting off very slippery, isn't it? So
yeah, man. Well, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
What I wanted to discuss with you was, first of all, that The Cause, you guys actually managed to do a few events last summer. What were the main challenges in actually making those happen?
It was delayed notice. So just there's no planning involved in pretty much anything we did. Or, you know, we'd get a few days notice, said, oh yeah, you can open this weekend, and then we'd have to put a load of stuff in and program it all really quickly. And then suddenly it might change. They might introduce, you know, a new guideline, and we'd consistently have to read. They'd announce it in the news. Everybody would panic. All the promoters, artists, DJs, staff, everybody would be like, what's going on? And I'd say, I don't know. I can't really say. I've got to wait for the detail. The detail will come out a day later, sometimes a bit longer. And then you work out what you can do from there. And there's never been any kind of real kind of help for our industry, or anyone's been, you know, saying, like, giving us a heads up, or it's just we were just left there to just basically work it out at a moment's notice.
So were you literally just waiting for announcements through the news? Was there not like a local, like, council liaison or someone sort of more in a more sort of authoritative
Absolutely
position?
nothing. No.
Wow.
So our head of licensing in Haringey just said, just watch the news. There's not much more she can say. So she was in the dark as much as we were. And yeah, there's literally like nowhere to go. You know, I'm on WhatsApp groups, you go and Google, and you literally just have to wait for it to come in. And then it's just like suddenly very hectic. You've got to put it together. We've actually quite luckily managed to have quite a lot of outdoor space, and we split it up into different areas. So we have multiple events going on at different times. And yeah, so we kind of crammed quite a lot in. But it was
well done for being so reactive and for your ingenuity as well, man. Because some of these events that you put on were quite innovative, and obviously utilised the outdoor space to the fullest, man. How are you preparing for the year ahead? I laugh when I ask the question, because, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, who the hell knows what's happening, man?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know, so I'm going to sit back for a little bit, in all honesty. I've got enough experience from where we've come from as a venue. Is we opened and we suddenly, you know, filled the diary and went from zero to a fully operating venue when we were supposed to close and leave to another site. So then we suddenly got our lease extended, and we suddenly had to reprogram it in January 2020, and then we've closed. Lockdown 1, reopened. So I'm kind of quite used to the stop-start and the hecticness of it. And right now I'm finding it, I've got loads of people trying to ring me and say, you know, can I put a date in for the diary here? Can I put this in? I'm like, how do you know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And my gut feel is there's going to be a lot of extra costs associated with going out, whether that's, you know, you have to have a test on the day or whatever it is. I don't think it's going to be just going back to how it was 18 months ago. There's going to be an extra cost, and how does that come across? And trying to work that out right now for a club of our size, when we've struggled to get over like £20 a head on a ticket before. So if you're taking out £10 for a test or whatever it is, then it's quite hard to do deals on now. So I'm not that proactive about trying to fill the calendar for the summer as it is, because just everything can change, in all honesty.
So what were some of the highlights from that dreadful year that we had? You know, like, there must have been a couple of events that you managed to pull off during the summer that made you kind of go.
Did loads of good stuff. We have like a monthly party called Adonis, which is a queer party we do.
Yeah.
We work with them, and we did a a cabaret show called Touche. So it was drag queens doing shows and food and performances, and that works really well. So we kind of just twisted up the format for different markets that we had. So that was really good. We've had some amazing DJs come down. Gerd Jansen played, and that was really good. But again, that was at just a moment's notice, like literally like 10 days notice, because we'd have several people that would book shows in, and then for whatever reason they weren't selling, they were losing confidence. Maybe one of their DJs or artists had COVID and said, I don't want to do it. So we had to quickly fill the diary again, stuff like that. So it was pretty hectic. Wow, but we did some good stuff. Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. Respect. Thanks. And hope things work out a bit better for you guys this year, because as I said, the Cause is definitely one of my favorite clubs that's appeared in the last few years, man. So
cheers.
Thanks for chatting.
Okay.
So here I've got Andy Blackett, Head of Promotions and Music Direction at Fabric. How's it going, Andy?
Yeah, good so far. I had a nice little Christmas, buried my head in the sand, but now back to reality, I guess.
Yeah, nice one, man. Yeah, reality indeed. My first question is, can you tell me about the personal and professional impacts that all of this has had on the club staff, including yourself, actually, and if there are any stories that kind of stand out for you?
Well, it's affected us all. Christ, I mean, no one's been untouched by it, top to bottom. So we were all on furlough, all of us, the whole team, and then luckily we were one of the lucky venues that got the culture grant. It is allowed us to run some projects and basically get project pay until the club can restart, and it's gone right to the top of I say top, no member of staff's been unaffected, and sadly a lot, in fact all but a handful have had to be made redundant. I hope to come back if they're still available when we can restart. Is the reality of it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, and what are you up to? So what are you up to day to day at the moment then?
Well, I don't know if I can go too much into it at the moment, but part of our culture recovery fund we've become guardians of a pot of money. I think the best way of saying it. Mm-hmm. And we've been lining up projects, educational outreach, streaming projects, podcasts, everything. And the aim is to filter out as much money to the ecosphere, I guess it's best described.
Yeah.
Anyone from artists to marketeers, to film crews, to sound crews, to lighting guys, to help us put all this together. And we have to keep reporting that back to the Arts Council. So that's keeping us busy. But to basically start the project on, call it the 25th of October, when we got awarded the money.
Yeah.
To go into a mini lockdown, let's say November, to come out for 3 weeks into Christmas, into a full lockdown. I feel like we're going backwards a lot, but we are slowly moving forward. So, fingers crossed we'll get something out probably after this lockdown, and it will be a complete package. So that's been keeping us entertained, let's say. But then now it's, we did have hope, God, with the vaccine announcements, I think back in late November, we're going to open in April. Obviously that's been set back, but we are slowly thinking about gearing up the venue and everything like that. And so we are, the core team is planning ahead, which is positive, but it's still, what's around the corner, we just don't know.
Yeah, which takes me on to my next question, actually, because there's a lot of uncertainty, but do you guys have any firm plans or, anything that you're kind of considering, or even, are you looking at specific parts of the year where you think, okay, that's a vague possibility?
I think the only thing you can get, I shouldn't say guarantee, but the safest bet is the later in the year, the more guarantee we have to open. So say actively looking at the last 4 months, 5 months of the year, and then the rest will be a reaction, because totally honest with you, the summer depends for club bookings, really depends on what goes on with the festivals. And if the festivals go ahead, I think the talent won't be there. If the festivals get cancelled because of the risk and the outlay that they have to do, and and let's say limited capacity 1,000 club shows can happen, we'll just have to react a bit like the pubs. But it's all hypothetical scenarios that you're trying to second guess. But you can't bet your house on anything. I think is the best way of saying it. It's just let's see what happens, but try and plan the end of the year as best we can.
And how much sort of contact have you got with other club owners and festival owners and stuff with regard to, you know, are there any like WhatsApp groups or anything that you're involved with?
There were many at the start of it all. I think a lot got tiring. I'm still, because I do bookings more than venue management as such, and on our owner level, that the main bookers, we've all been chatting. So, you know, chatting to AJ and Mark at Printworks, and you know, Will and Mike at, you know, LWE, and Rich McGuinness and things like that. And my closer friends of agents and that, we're all trying to second guess what's going on. And so I mean, we're all in the same boat, but I mean, the general consensus is, I guess the best way of saying, book the year backwards, because you can't plan a launch party, you can't plan a big opening, you can't plan anything. But we hope we won't miss another birthday. So I guess we hope the big one will be back in October for our 21st birthday. If we can get that. I mean, I've got, I say, God forbid we aren't open by then, but surely we've got to be thinking post-summer, he's got to be back to some normality.
Yeah, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed and keep the dancing shoes out in a place where I can see them and get ready for that. Because I'm the same as you. I mean, obviously we're all the same. Like, we're just hoping, aren't we? Really. Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for joining me, and thanks for your insight, man. Really appreciate your time.
Oh, cool. That's all short and sweet, isn't it? Yeah, good. All right, mate. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Nice one.
All right, cheers. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. Yeah.
And we're going to move on to Steve Brains and Sophia Kierney, who I refer to as an awesome management duo from The Weird and the Wonderful, but also co-founded the brilliant He, She, They, which, if you don't know, is a place for people to be people, as the slogan says. Guys, thanks for joining me. I really wish that I was there in person to give you both a massive hug, because it's been so long since I've seen you guys, man. It's ridiculous.
Really ages. I think we were at some fabric opening thing, watching one of our mutual friends, Anna Wall, playing. We bumped into each other on the dance floor, and that feels like a million years ago now.
Yes, I think that was last January.
You've had a kid since the last time I saw you. Like, you've made an entire human in the time.
This is true.
True,
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me and taking the time to chat to us. It's a pleasure to have you here. First of all, I wanted both of you to tell me about the impacts that this has had on artists that you manage, and you know, whether there's, like, you know, some positive stories, and also, you know, how they've kind of navigated the lack of gigs, etc.
Shall I take this one, Braids?
Okay.
I was offering to do it, not
no,
you.
just because I'm really ignorant, and normally I always just jump into everything first. So it's like the one time I was being good.
I'll do this one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a tough one. Like, in terms of positivity, this has gone on for such a long time now. So at the beginning, a lot of our artists tour relentlessly, being electronic musicians who play sort of globally. So initially it was like, wow, studio time, amazing, gonna make all this music, and we've finally got this, you know, creative headspace and freedom where we're not exhausted from flights, and everyone was just so creative for that first period of it. And obviously everyone is still making music, but as time goes on, it's difficult for any of us on this Zoom call here, for anyone in the industry, to feel consistently motivated to learn that new skill, tick off all those jobs that you never had time to do before. It's really hard with your mental health to keep delivering at a certain level when you've had a lot of minimal social interaction, like be it at a party or even just with your friends. So positively, there's been some beautiful music made from this. And there's certainly been, like, some of our artists also, for example, paint as one of their other pastimes. So I know that he's been spending a lot of time doing that, but it's to give you any more positives than that, it is difficult, because we've lost all of our community. And there's only so many Zoom calls and things that you can do before it's just not the same. So coming into this new year with, I mean, not a lot of hope for the next 3 or 4 months, but the fact that the vaccine is at least on the horizon, and I feel positive about the second half of this year. But you're just having to take it week by week at the moment. But we've got a lot of great records already delivered from that creative period last year that we're really looking forward to promoting and putting out. Like, recorded music has gone up. People are still consuming music and enjoying music at home, probably discovering a lot more new music, and that's really exciting for a lot of our acts. So hope for the future, basically.
Nice one, which leads me nicely on to my next question, which
we
is...
did also make a short film, by the way, within COVID somehow, which is like a Killing Eve times Kill Bill, mad CGI, socially distanced, like Maya J. Cole's video, which is probably the most ambitious video we've ever made. And I think Sophia and I nearly lost all our hair making sure that everyone got COVID tests and all this stuff. And it's like, should be interesting when that hits. And I think people will be like, oh my God, you made that during Corona. So yeah, I mean, I think that was like the one positive that came out of it. And I think Sophia and I refocused on our He, She, They record label and our activism as well, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So that was my extra bit.
So as I know the future is quite sort of difficult to envision at the moment, well, beyond the next week or so. But have you guys sort of put together any plans or projections for the coming months or the year ahead? You know, I know it's pretty difficult, but you know, you still have to kind of try and consider.
Similar to what Stuart was saying, really, like, having learnt from so many reschedules and so many different things over the last year, it kind of is like we've got some really exciting online streaming things planned. We had a couple of great partnerships with Beatport and another great one with Pablo Vittar. So it's been exciting to delve into that world and explore the sort of augmented reality and all different things that have been popping up that was just never a thing before. I'm really excited for the new campaigns from the artists, and I'm really excited to push forward with the label, to be honest. I've found running the label surprisingly really exciting and loved doing it. So we've got a lot of demos to go through, which we're really excited about. Anything else, Stephen, you want to add to that?
No, just basically we've copied the diary from last year into this year, and then it's just like you just watch the dates kind of pop off. I mean, we were trying to do this one day in London. I think it's had 9 reschedules. It's just
wow.
So there's just a point of like, there's like if you keep putting that show on sale and taking it away, then you're just going to erode consumer confidence as well. Because it's kind of boy cried wolf. Well, like, oh no, the gig's done again. So today we were booking in something into Q4, He, She, They in LA. So we'll see if that at least stands up. Because last year with He, She, They, we were supposed to be in 20 countries. We were going to do a South America tour, an Australia tour. And I'm like the whole time, like, oh, we should announce it. And then like, we was going to do our first DC10. There was all these like, kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing
Glastonbury
this
stage as well.
Glastonbury stage.
Which was like, one of my ultimate dreams. So really hoping that we'll be pushing to reschedule that.
Yeah, so it's just like massive balloon, massive pop. So that was just, it's really hard, like just kind of mentally to get yourself motivated to do something, which is why like Sophia says like things like the label and bringing up new artists and like, or like the thing with He, She, They that we've been able to like push like trans activism or Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter and just kind of like give a platform to people who don't always give a platform. And like, I think that kind of returned us back to why we got into music. then it was quite fun to kind of have rediscovery. Because to be honest, when you're not getting paid for anything, you have to make like joy out of somewhere. And it was like, well, we are quite lucky to have this platform, so we can, because we are kind of different from, I guess, other labels, and we have a fashion label. This is the other thing that was not to make us fucking properly depressed, but so we also to make sure, like, because we were just doing music, we were like, we should diversify into fashion, because Sophia and I both like fashion, or just wearing black clothes basically. so we launched this fashion line, he, she, they, which originally we were going to be a fashion line that ran parties, and now we're a label and parties and all different things. So anyway, we got onto the official London Fashion Week schedule, which from a kid from Sunderland and a kid from Banbury was probably a first that any of us were let anywhere near a London fashion catwalk, let alone like do an event.
That was the last party we threw, actually, last Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it was big trans inclusive party, because we just felt that fashion kind of uses like trans people as a Pinterest board thing, but doesn't actually platform them or like give them a voice. So we just kind of looked within that, and then within the intersections of that, like trans people of color and things like that, and just try to make an interesting, diverse thing that challenged what conventional kind of fashion was. Not in this kind of like, oh my god, we put someone heavy down a catwalk, aren't we amazing? It was like, let's just actually show what real people look like with real lives and platform. So anyway, going to Love Magazine, Page and GQ style, all this, like, amazing. Like, this is going a lot better than we thought it was going to go. And then all our clothes got locked in a furloughed factory in Britain. So it was like, for 6 months, no one could even go into the factory to get the clothes to sell them. So it's mad. We've just sold out of everything apart from baggy t-shirt basically now. So it's just kind of, that's for next year as well. But like, it's just weird, because the only thing that we tried to diversify into last year from events and music was like, we should do this ethical fashion brand, and then all fashion shops as well, because all the people who wanted to buy us, like Nordstrom's and things like that, didn't really want to take a risk on a really new, quite expensive, because it's like, you know, it's vegan friendly and it's fair trade and all the rest of it. So the price point's higher than like a £10 merch t-shirt. So it was just it's been a hard one. Anyway, I'm waffling now, but like,
you are, mate.
It was just a weird one.
Not Marcus, please.
I don't get to speak to anyone. I'm in lockdown. I'm muting myself.
Me too.
I love you, brains, man. Love you. Grace Flynn, who launched the Dear Boris campaign, and Michael Kill from NTIA. Step up to the plate.
Hello.
How are you both doing?
Good, getting there. Getting each day has its own wonder from Boris, which I look forward to.
Indeed it does.
We move.
Indeed it does.
It's been a novelty piece. I mean, it makes you laugh. I mean, for anyone's, I know everyone said it'd be great to go and engage. I've been engaging with politicians for the last 9 months, and trust me, you just need some real people engagement. That's the challenge at the moment.
Yeah, man. So on that note, you know, things seem to be getting worse rather than better at the moment. What kind of messaging is being sent to representatives from Parliament with regard to the future of nightlife? You know, and who are our allies as well, if any?
Well, the challenge you've got, just going back to some of the narrative and the communication, most of the communication is coming from the 6 key cabinet members, which are keeping everything to themselves up until about 24, 48 hours before. I mean, we have meetings with things like the MPCC and you know, the central local government authority that looks after all of the organisation, and they all are not aware of what's going on. Even Sadiq Khan and the Mayor of London, Mayor of Manchester, is not knowing what's going to happen until 24, 48 hours before. So trust me when I tell you, and I hear Stuart's, we hear pretty much at the same time as the politicians here, which is 24, 48 hours before, but we're under embargo not to release, and we've got to be very careful. but we try and give people a heads up or give them some direction. But yeah, we've got a growing level of allies in terms of MPs and ministers. Obviously, Conservative Party are sticking very close together and not willing to break rank at the moment, because I think that's something that the whips are quite hard on. But apart from that, I mean, there's definitely allies growing. I mean, we managed to culminate, I think there was about 78 MPs that came across to us to vote against the curfew and things like that. So we started to embed, and we are moving in the right direction. The fact of the matter is January was always going to be a lockdown period, you know, with them keeping education open, keeping retail open over the festive period. The fact that people would all, you know, there were a lot of people who'd still do their illegal events one way or another. We were heading to a period of lockdown. We were giving the government every excuse to do it alongside the transmission rate. But the fact, I mean, I spoke to a minister earlier today and I said to them, I said, look, if you're talking about protecting the NHS and saving lives, how can you put education and retail being open and not consider the lives that it's going to risk there either? So what you're suggesting is education is more important than health. So how do you answer that? And he couldn't answer it, sadly. But this is the consistent narrative that we're challenged with. And it's definitely you know, meeting after meeting we push, but we're definitely getting more allies in government now than we ever have done. But there's a lot of misconception and a lot of misinformation that needs to be dealt with, and that's been clear over the 9 months that it's not as clear in terms of what we are as an industry.
Yeah. So what are your next steps, and sort of how are you feeling about everything? Because you know, I get your email updates, and there's some pretty sort of dire statistics coming through. So
well, the next stage is a coup, as you can imagine, a government takeover. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think it matters which government are in place. They will all have very challenging environments. The biggest thing at the moment is we need to move fast. We need vaccinations to be rolled out. But that intermediary stage that we need is that rapid testing that's going to allow the businesses that are unable to open or are based on social engagement to open the doors until the vaccinations get to a critical point. I mean, we had a big meeting yesterday about budgets. As you can appreciate, the 9K sort of submission for rateable value businesses was welcome. CRF fund launches today in terms of the 250 million. But what they're trying to do is see themselves through to the budget in March. And the budget will release another set of support mechanisms. But they're talking about April in terms of Easter, looking at restrictions being lifted. But there's so many pieces that need to be patched together, whether you talk about excluded, freelance, sole traders, agents, festivals, events, insurance. I mean, they've left so many gaps. I mean, all they're doing is plastering over, and I think they're now solely focused on the vaccination being their savior, sadly.
Right.
But on a positive note, I mean, I cannot not see us getting back this year to some level. And I think everyone's got to commit to pushing as hard as possible at 100% capacity events, whether we start with COVID secure environments with a limited cap. We need to get consumer confidence back in events, festivals and venues. And we've got enough entrepreneurs and skilled creatives out there that can really make a difference. So that's a big thing for us this year, is utilize the expertise that we have, ram it down the government's throat in terms of making sure that they know that we know what we're doing and we can do it safely so that we can get the doors open. And that's our intent early part of this year, to make sure that we're ready for February, March, or whenever they press a button. But if we're not ready to rush the door, then we're not going to get in, is the way that I look at it.
Nice one. Thanks for that, Michael. Julian, welcome to the chat.
Hi.
Would you mind putting yourself on mute, and then you're up in a couple of people's time, so I'll give you a shout shortly. Thank you. Grace, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad. Wanted to say well done with the Dear Boris campaign.
Thank you.
So it highlights the stories of those affected by the closure of nightlife. Can you tell me a little bit about the impacts that it's had on the people that you're in touch with?
Yes, it's been a really, really kind of strange year for everyone. And it was my company I work for, Mustard Media, we teamed up with the NTIA to kind of push forward this campaign idea, because, you know, on one hand, we have these incredible clients we work with and festivals we run ourselves in various countries across Europe and in the UK. And, you know, half of us, we were doing all these shows and, you know, are they going to go ahead? Should we launch? Should we not? And it was this real strange kind of limbo where half of us were pushing forward with it and, you know, let's do it. And then half the people were kind of, you know, in a position where they couldn't do that. Maybe they weren't, you know, as big as the other festivals, or they didn't have the financial backing to put into it. They didn't have the team, the structure, and kind of, it was kind of going from, we kind of got to summer and we were doing a bunch of shows in Malta and, you know, one by one festivals were dropping off. And then we got to sort of September and we were like, right, we're going to launch again, a couple more. And it was kind of going through the process from launching in January last year to go into launching in September this year. It's just, you know, we just saw there was booking agents, there was, you know, promotions assistants, there were all these people we'd worked with for years who had just like didn't have their security or jobs anymore. And I think it was kind of going through the process and seeing how many people really were affected by this. And it's not just, I think people see, a problem is people see festivals and they see clubs and they think, wicked, we've got there's a party on. They don't think there's a booking agent who's booked it, you know, there's a promoter behind it, there's someone who does security, there's a finance person. They just think that there's one guy who owns a club who magically puts on this event. And actually, we really wanted to show the kind of the deterioration that's happened internally amongst these companies. And whereas some of them on the surface might still have they might have a team of people, it's likely to be maybe 3 people instead of 10, or, you know, 20 instead of 100. And it was just something we really thought we needed to highlight. So we kind of came up with the campaign idea to show everyone what people are standing to lose, and what if, you know, we don't get the support from the government, what the outcome has already started to become and will continually just be for our industry.
And so have you had much feedback from the people that have been involved with the campaign in terms of, you know, the impacts that it's had on them, even just you know, the fact that you've offered them a platform to share their experience and their insights?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, it went down when we kind of posted it out across the NTIA and across our socials. We had loads of people get in touch and just kind of say, you know, thank you for putting the voice out there. Obviously, we tried to be diverse in the different people that were in the video in regards to their job title and into regards of where they kind of come from, whether they're, you know, and we had like someone who was an aspiring DJ. We also had, you know, big DJs in there to kind of show both ends of the spectrum. And I think for us, it was a real starting point to continue this movement now. And I think, you know, Mike and I have got some stuff, I'm sure, in the works for this year to kind of really, really continue with that campaign. And I think for us, this was a great platform to kind of start off and say, you're not just ruining, you know, you're not just ruining, people think music, they think Live Nation, they think Sony, they think, you know, it's like, actually, there's this massive bandwidth of us independent people, club owners, promoters, you know, festival owners, etc. And it's like, actually, you don't even count us in that regard. And I think it's really about opening a platform for all these various people, whether you're someone who, you know, work on the bar at a club and you have done for your whole life. It's giving a platform to not just those people, but the people, you know, our next big standpoint is the future. You know, these 16, 17-year-old kids who are in their bedroom, you know, desperate to be sound engineers, or, you know, they wanted to go to uni and do that, or they've had decks since they were younger and their parents have taught them how to DJ. You know, they want to be the next Carl Cox. And it's like, we need to keep moving, because the way it's going and the way the government, you know, are treating us, they're stripping away an entire culture. And, you know, it will just stop for the younger generation if we don't keep on pushing through.
Yeah, well, I tip my hat to you for starting the campaign and for galvanizing community and offering some, you know, some inspiration to the younger generation too. And thanks for joining us, and thanks for giving your insight.
Thank you.
Paul Hunter.
Right, yeah.
Paul Hunter, infectious disease expert from the University of East Anglia. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
Nice to be chatting with you again. What's your view on the current situation here in the UK and the repeated use of lockdowns?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in currently. I don't think there's any argument. We're in a pretty dreadful place at the moment with case numbers going up, hospitalizations going up, deaths starting to go up. Oh, well, deaths going up quite quickly as well now, and it's pretty dire. And I suspect we're going to be in some pretty dire place for the next at least 2-3 months with that before things start easing off. The vaccination is good. The vaccination will certainly make a big impact, reduce cases in hospital, reduce deaths. But, you know, this new variant has really made things more difficult than it was a month ago. I mean, at the beginning of December, I was quite convinced we'd be looking to start easing restrictions throughout, possibly by the end of January, and that. But this new variant has really thrown a spanner in the works, and it's so depressing that this new variant's arrived. And the South African variant may be even more problematic. It may be more resistant to vaccine than the English variant, and so yeah, there's still. I think it's still going to be some time before we can finally think this is going to be behind us. But we will get there. You know, there will be a point, and it won't be years into the future. It will be sometime in the next year or so that we can say, yeah, it's going to be, we're over the worst of it now. And I think we're going to be over the worst of it by, March, early April. But that doesn't mean to say we'll be totally out of the woods.
What are the chances of another variant popping up somewhere else in the world?
Quite high, yeah.
Really?
I mean, yeah. And you sort of expect this, and if we'd in this country managed to get case numbers down during the summer, we might not have actually had the new variant arising in our country, but it would have almost certainly arisen somewhere else. And of course, the South African variant, which is possibly even more troubling, arose totally independently of what was going on here. And these variants, when they appear, they spread globally, and we're already seeing that, certainly with the English variant and probably also with the South African variant as well. So it is a pretty depressing state at the moment, but at least we've got vaccine now, which will start to make things a lot easier, fairly, within the next couple of months at least.
But where does that leave the efficacy of the vaccine with regard to the variants as well?
Well, we don't know. I mean, I think the efficacy of the vaccines against the English variant, which is the thing that's causing us most problem at the moment, is from what I can tell, reading the papers, it's not going to be that different. We'll still have that. There's an uncertainty with the South African variant and how effective vaccines will be against that. Almost certainly, they will still be effective, but maybe not quite as effective as they would have been otherwise. And but it's still early days to be absolutely sure, to be honest.
Okay. If we're to put on a pair of optimism glasses and look at the future, how do you imagine clubs and festivals might be able to return to business as usual?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things is that outdoors you are much less likely to spread the virus than indoors. So I'm quite hopeful that there will be plenty of outdoor music around this summer. Partly because both my sons earn their living playing music, but they're improv jazz musicians, so most of their gigs are socially distant anyway. Yeah, so I can see that happening. I think indoor venues probably will struggle for at least until April, and I think after then we will hopefully start seeing some more music being able to be played indoors. Yeah, but you know, it does depend. We've already had this big kick in the teeth over these new variants this last month, and there's nothing to say that something even worse might not be coming down the line. And you know, but we can't go on forever like this, you know. So we have to try and come to some sort of accommodation with the virus, hopefully through vaccine, but if not, as people start developing their immunity through both a mixture of vaccine and natural infection. And it's quite possible that even if the virus is still around, that if once we've had the vaccine, that and you know, the vaccines may not actually stop you getting infected. They certainly reduce your chances of getting really sick. But possibly once you've actually had some immunity, then if you do get infected, all that does is sort of boost that and keeps you more protected. And once we get to that sort of stage, I think we will be very much going back to maybe not business as normal, but a lot more easier than we've seen it over recent weeks, recent months. Yeah.
Nice one. Well, thanks for your input, Paul. It's much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Julian? Are you there, Julian?
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello. Consultant virologist at the Leicester Royal Infirmary and Honorary Associate Professor in the Department of Respiratory Science. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. Much appreciated. How's it going?
Yeah. Well, it's fine. Just another lockdown, and I'm just catching up on writing various papers and analysing those sequences, and that's what I do. So
Nice
just gives
one.
you more time to do that at home.
Wicked. So my first question for you is, do you see any way back for nightclubs right now?
So one of my research areas is aerosol transmission, and I think the COVID-19 pandemic has really shown that what happens with a aerosol transmitted virus. And unfortunately, nightclubs are kind of the worst places to be with this type of virus. So I think, again, the vaccination is probably the only way out for you guys. And unless you can have all your parties outside. But even that doesn't really protect you completely, because if you're in close conversational contact with somebody, even outside, you can still spread the virus. Basically, if I can smell your garlic breath, I'm inhaling what you're breathing out, including any virus. So even if you're outside, I can still smell your garlic breath within a meter, then you're still at risk from that. So I think it's pretty, it's pretty dire for you guys out there in the entertainment industry. And I honestly think the only way to get through this for you is to vaccinate everybody, particularly the young, so that they don't get infected, and bring it back to elderly parents or grandparents. So the young are basically relatively, least affected by this virus. But the thing is, they become a vector, and they can bring it home to elderly relatives, vulnerable relatives and parents, and that becomes the risk. That's why they're closing the schools now.
Yeah. Right. And so based on everything that's been happening recently with, the new variants, etc., what would your advice be for nightclub owners?
Well, I mean, if you can't do things outside, then try and reduce the number of people you have inside. Try and get a venue with very high ceilings, like a barn or something like an amphitheatre. Even with a kind of roofless amphitheatre would be good to increase the air volume that can dilute the virus. If people can wear masks while they're raving, then that would also add an additional layer of protection. And there's some really cool masks out there. I had a look last time we talked, and there's some very cool and trendy masks out there. But obviously, it's harder to breathe. You get sweaty, and sweat runs in your eyes. It's not great for a good night out. And that kind of personal contact distance, if you can reduce that, I know it's tricky, but if you can reduce it on the dance floor and on the side tables, that would be ideal as well. If you're inside and you do have windows, try to keep the windows open. People get hot and sweaty, so that may not be a bad thing to cool down a bit. But it's really always the close contact, face-to-face close contact, garlic breath distance contact that really facilitates the transmission of this virus. But interestingly, there was a study done on mouthwash and COVID-19 virus some time ago. And they found that Listerine and other alcohol-based mouthwashes were very effective in reducing the oropharyngeal viral load of the virus. So if you are drinking alcohol at the same time, 4 to 12% beer or anything else, you may actually reduce your oropharyngeal viral load. So that when you're actually dancing and talking, you may actually have a reduced viral load between you and your partner. So that actually is an inadvertent benefit of an alcohol drink whilst you're at the party.
That is hilarious, and that also completely neutralizes your garlic breath analogy.
Well, exactly. So if you have an alcoholic drink, it's almost like an alcohol swab, before you have an injection. That actually destroys the virus lipid envelope because it's very fragile and sensitive to alcohol. I'll send you the paper afterwards, so you can use it in your article if you write this up, because it was actually quite an interesting finding. And in fact, the mouthwashes that didn't have alcohol in them, like the non-alcoholic mouthwashes, didn't do so well against the virus, which we could predict from the structure of the virus.
That is hilarious. I haven't had a drink for 2 years, but I might consider it if it gets me back out raving. Thanks a lot, Julian. I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Sure.
Nix, you're up.
Hello.
DJ, educator, consultant, and co-founder of Black Bandcamp. Thanks for taking the time to chat to us. Your presence is much appreciated. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I've been good. I actually, similar to you, it was my 2-year anniversary 2 days ago from not drinking.
Boom.
Yeah.
Well done, well done. So I wanted to talk to you about the fact that live events have been completely obliterated by the pandemic, but other areas of our community have been thriving. For example, independent radio stations. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience in radio during this time?
Yeah, so that's my background is in radio, and so what I've been doing in the past since around the summer is supporting community radio stations to kind of thrive and develop. So out of all the mediums, radio, TV, print, magazine, etc., radio has had the most increasing listenerships. So that medium is something that people have been actively engaging more in. I know I've been listening to far more radio than I ever had, just because of time. If you're invested in a person, you think, okay, I'm going to make sure every Wednesday I'm tuned into that person's show. But also, I think specifically with community radio, certain platforms who are funding these communities understand that, okay, people have no access to other people. People are literally being deprived of any sort of arts, music and culture. So what can we do to support? So I've been supporting certain funding bodies in going into certain boroughs, namely in South London, and potentially bringing. So one of the ones that I'm working with opened last September in Greenwich, and I've been supporting them in the community, and that's been really fun because I think particularly in the summer when we're like all at festivals and you're like every weekend packing a new suitcase to go from here to there to that this gig, you kind of forget about community and people around you. So it's been really nice to actually go into local communities, although that has had to that's been limited because we've had to actually close the studios because of the lockdowns. Yeah. But you can still do things digitally, and that's one of the beauties of radio. Like, you don't have to physically be there. You can record things from home as long as you've got access to like equipment and stuff. You can record a show at home. You can broadcast from home. You can edit your own shows and stuff. So yeah, that's been awesome.
Nice. So what you were saying about the radio there just reminds me of like the olden days before the internet, when you'd be like, right, I'm listening to so-and-so every Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's me.
Yeah. And I think as well, looking specifically at independent radio, but like community as a whole, just general community, that is something that has been needed even more the past 9 months. That community feel, people belonging to a community, being part of the community, being able to access and reach out to that community, forming new communities. We've had loads of those over the past 9 months. So I think anything that's community driven in the past 9 months has been thriving. And I think also people who consume radio or any other medium, you're more likely to engage with something that is community driven you know, people have lost their jobs, people have been made redundant, people have been on furlough, people have no money, people are having to, you know, apply for universal credit, things that no one ever thought they would ever have to do in their lives, particularly people like us who are self-employed and, you know, do freelance work. So anything that's community, I think, is very essential, and I hope that that feeling, that very heightened feeling of community, continues even once we return back to normal, when and if that is, whatever normal means, that we don't go back into our own bubbles and our own worlds of doing what we do Monday to Sunday, Monday to Friday, because I think that's something that all of us have been quite sinful of doing. When you look back at the lifestyles we were living, it was very individualistic. I mean, I know mine was, and you just go about your day-to-day life. I think also living in London, you just go about your day-to-day life. You're not that you're not concerned about others, but you don't think about people as much. So I think there's a lot of holistic rituals that we will be adapting to moving forward. And for me, community is one of the big ones.
That's a really great point, and I've noticed that through some of the features that I've written over the last few months. A lot of people have spoken about sort of our community being galvanized by all of this. Outside of radio, what would you say the kind of effects the effects the pandemic has had on like creative output and collaboration?
So this is an interesting one, but I think there's just pros and cons. So looking at creative output, you've got the pros of there has just been so much amazing creations made, whether it be music, EPs, albums, etc. And that's brilliant because, you know, people have more time on their hands and are able to look more inwards and utilising what evokes feelings and emotions we've been going through and experiencing to really put that into the output and creation. And I think that's amazing. What I think can be detrimental is this kind of hyper content creation. So, and I have to say, like, Bandcamp Fridays have spurred this on. So people feel obliged to having to create content. The amount of artists and producers that have reached out to me, oh, I don't have a new EP for the next Bandcamp Friday. And it's like, you don't need to have a new EP. Exactly. Every Bandcamp Friday, you will exhaust yourself. You're forcing yourself to create because you feel that you must keep up, and if you don't, then you're missing out and you're losing out on sales. I have to give a massive shout out and highlight to Russell E. Butler. So they're one of the people that has actually said, I've not created an album this month, go to my Bandcamp, I've got an album there that's 6 months old, you can buy that. And I think that's awesome. Exactly. You know, completely flipping that on the head. So obviously Bandcamp Fridays have been awesome, but I think speaking to a lot of artists, there's a lot of anxiety around what am I going to produce for the next Friday. You know, 4 or 5 weeks isn't a long time to produce something to high quality that you are happy with the final product. It's also created this sense of like competitiveness. Again, this is just from speaking with producers and artists of like, you know, oh, this person's done this and that they've got that, and it's like, no, you don't have to, you know, don't give into that. So from that kind of musical side of things, I think there's the pros and cons. And then I think generally, like, as a consumer, there's everything we're accessing is now virtual and digital and online. So there is, again, this hyper content creation of, I mean, even this is like, people this Saturday will be able to watch this panel and then go and watch an online festival. And online festivals is a big thing that's happening. You know, you're buying tickets to watch something online. Which one am I going to choose? So we are bombarded with a lot of content, and with that, it's like, you know, it's great because it means that we do have access to this content, but at the same time, I think we need to all just slow down. We need to take our time and not feel obliged to having every month to have this big extravaganza for people to access, because I think, as we've just discussed, we're not in any rush. We're not in any rush at all. So yeah. And then the second one was creative output and collaborations. Yeah, I think collaborations more positively. There have just been so many collaborations that have happened that just would never have happened if it wasn't for the lockdown. I think, like, I look back to like Black Bandcamp, like that, I wouldn't have been able to start that if it wasn't a pandemic, which is really sad to say.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the root of it, if we weren't all at home on our phones, if people weren't screaming about Black Lives Matter, if people weren't actually looking inward at their own personal actions, then Black Bandcamp wouldn't have started. And then all the different collaborations and people we've worked with and artists we've been able to showcase and support and leverage wouldn't have happened. And with that, we've had so many people, you know, reaching out to us for collaborations. I think maybe on a more personal note, as a Black person in the electronic scene, because now everyone wants to collaborate with a Black person or with a Black identity, the amount of emails I get asking for collaborations is overwhelming, to the point where I'm like, you know, are you doing, and you have to think, you have to look at who the platform is, who the individual is, look at their history. Do they have a history of supporting Black people, Black folk, or is it now because it's trendy? So like, collaborations are great, but for me and my platform, we have to be very careful about who are we collaborating with. Is this just for their good PR, or is this a genuine, you know, we want to support Black electronic artists? So yeah.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience, and yeah, it's kind of bewildering in some ways. Thanks for your time. That was a really great insight. So thanks a lot. Anton, you're up.
Hi everyone.
Anton, one of the team
How's
at
it going?
Eden Manchester. Excellent club up there in the north. How you doing, man?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's nice to be chatting to people apart from my like other half and my baby daughter and stuff, man.
Yeah, I bet it is. Same here as well, to be honest. We have actually been doing a little bit of time here and there as we can, you know, to sort of keep in touch as a team, and a bit of time in the office as well before this lockdown. But I think we're in the same boat as everyone else now, trying to do what we can whilst we're at home.
Yeah, man. Manchester's been hit pretty hard, hasn't it, over the last few months?
Yeah.
So you guys got a payout from the Art Council. I wondered how long that will keep you guys going, how it's kind of being implemented.
So the payout from the Arts Council, the whole the kind of like the benefit of us is that it kind of gives you that security up until a certain point. So it covers us until the first quarter of this year. Right. We've been looking through the guidance as the team today to look at the second quarter part of the CRF fund, which is their part 2, and that'll take us up until the second part of the year, and up until the start of the summer. In terms of the way how that's going to affect us as a business, I mean, obviously it's been a complete lifesaver. I mean, I'm not too sure, you know, there's been many businesses of a similar nature that haven't been successful, and I've seen and I know people who've been on the sharp end of that. So yeah, we're you know, just sort of happy to be having something that we can then, you know, use to sort of help ourselves improve, and you know, we're always open to the idea of adapting as well, and that's kind of what the route we've been going down with the fund so far.
Did you guys manage to open your doors at all last summer?
No, actually. No. So, like, you know, I think someone mentioned this earlier in the conversation, but I mean, when the pandemic was kind of at its peak, you know, obviously everything went into a lockdown in March. We were sort of struggling with the idea of trying to do something at that time that just involved people coming together. I mean, we were kind of split on it as an office. Obviously, we felt we could do it safely, but then it's just like the idea of, you know, can you then guarantee as people leave the venue, they're not going to group further down the street? And I don't know if it's something that we just felt we weren't comfortable with at that time. So we kind of tried to hold back on that for as long as we possibly could, until it got to the point where it was like, you know, if we don't do something soon, we are going to have to, you know, look at probably, you know, closure, or, you know, looking at something more serious that we probably may not have been able to come back from. So at every stage, basically, when it was like before the tiers and before the second lockdown, we were just about to do something, but it was like socially distanced, you know, people sitting down and people using the outdoor space, and then the rules changed, and then it was literally like the week before the thing, and then we ended up having to scrap that and start again. So we scrapped it and started again. We had something else which was basically, you know, completely polished, ready to go, indoors, you know, seated areas, groups of 6, all of this different, you know, a different way of kind of presenting the idea. And with about 2 days notice again, the rules changed. We had to drop that, and it was like, you know, without the CRF funding coming through, I mean, it's been vital to helping us really to plan for the future, and just to know that we've actually got a future to plan for is, like I said, it's better than a lot of people have had. So it's a blessing, really.
Yeah, man. What kind of an effects does that have on you and the rest of the team in terms of, like, you know, your mental state? Because having that kind of build up and then disappointment, and then, you know, as I said before, that, you know, you guys got hammered with like tier 3 before pretty much anyone else did, and, you know, it must be pretty tough at times, man.
Yeah, it's not been easy. I mean, but to be honest, like, it's never been, I mean, the club, anyone who's got a club or knows anything to do with nights or anything, you know, it's kind of where it's kind of like an educated guess to sort of, you know, plan things sort of 6, 7, 8 months ahead. In most cases, they don't always come off. We're used to taking knocks and getting back up, and it's kind of just been, I mean, our team is like, we're all of the same sort of mind, so we all know how to pick each other up and to sort of make moves onto the next part of anything that we're working towards. So yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's been a kick in the teeth at points, but I mean, for me personally, last year I had a little girl myself, and I feel like that was a silver lining, you know, having additional time at home, you know, throughout the lockdown, and, you know, having, you know, furlough come into the office, and just, we got so many things that so many people didn't, and that's the kind of the way we're looking at it. So it could have been way worse, the fact that we've still got a business at this point, and we can still plan ahead, and it's a case of, yeah, the events didn't go ahead that we would have liked to have gone ahead at this point, but we've still got them up in the air to be able to reschedule them until later on in the year, you know, whenever that may be. You know, like I said, it's a lot better than what others have got, so at the minute, yeah, it's looking good.
Well, congratulations to you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. Beyond the grant, what else have you guys been working on to ensure that you guys managed to survive? Have you had any other sort of, you know, plans or anything that you've been trying to implement to sort of keep yourselves afloat, or has the grant been enough for now?
No, so a big part of the grant was basically we want to try and make ourselves sustainable. Obviously, as anyone who knows who's you know, the difference of promoting a venue is you've still got those overheads and costs which are ticking over month on month, and we've actually got studios there. So in the separate part of the warehouse now, we've actually got some studios, and we've been sort of building them as we've gone along, and we've been sort of generating interest in them, helping to promote them and trying to get people involved to help us really sort of focus on the creative art side of stuff. Right. From day one, that's always been a sort of a dream of ours, is to not just be a nightclub. You know, Hidden it's a huge building. It's got 5 stories. We've got a courtyard outside. We've got another courtyard around the corner. We've got, you know, quite a lot to offer really in terms of what we can be. And I feel like the vision was always to try and expand on the creative and especially the art side on top of the music, which I feel like we have been able to do. Like I said, the real positive for us out of this experience is that we've been able to focus on things that we maybe wouldn't have had the time to have done beforehand. So I mean, we've started a radio station, which was like initially a 7-week pilot just before December last year, and then we're almost at the stage now where we're ready to release the information for this coming year, which has been great so far to have that. And we started doing merchandise with a collaboration with one of our close friends and artists, Craig Riddams, and you know, they're 2 things which we've always kind of spoken of and never actually had the opportunity to be able to push out there until now. So yeah, it's been good.
Good for you, man, and good luck for the year, and thanks for joining us, and
thank you.
Thanks for being so patient as well, man.
Yeah, no problem, it's all good.
Last but not least, Nick Stevenson, Managing Director at Mixmag. What's going on, man?
I'm good, mate. You?
Yeah, I'm all right. As I said, it's nice to be chatting to other human beings, man.
It's been a really interesting panel as well. The new Andrew Marr of dance music, Marcus. Although you don't interrupt enough.
Not in the looks department, but yeah, thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Good. We've just had as with everyone, a very difficult but busy year in a way at Mixmag. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes in how we do things, but yeah, I suppose it's just been adapting like everyone else has to find a way to draw the strength of what your brand can do, what your company can do to help in these situations, which is what's been probably the biggest thing that we've noticed really, is just that growth in kindness and altruism really across dance music, that real sense of wanting to help each other out and put other people before themselves, whether that's in business itself or when it comes to the amount of charity work that's happening as well.
Yeah. So what are some of the most inspiring stories that you've heard?
Well, I mean, there's been so many. We set up a good news blog on Mixmag's website because it felt like every day there was a different story of. At the start, when it all started happening, everyone in dance music was doing streams and was doing charity and was doing, kind of fundraising specifically for COVID or for the NHS in the UK or for other COVID-related funds around the world, putting their own business and the dance scene almost secondary. And then as we came on through the lockdown, it went on longer than I thought any of us thought it was going to be. We suddenly realised actually we do also need to look after ourselves a little bit as well. Yeah. But in the same way, it was about saving jobs and saving companies and saving clubs and making sure that the people that were going to the clubs, the money they're saving by not going to clubs and not spending money at bars, could be put towards making sure those jobs still exist when we all get out of this. So that's been really good to see. But I mean, there's been so many inspiring stories on our good news blog. I mean, just a few cases. There was like, I know the guys in Liverpool Circus and Chibuku, they were like, they were 3D printing like 5,000 masks a day. Obviously the rise of Bandcamp, it's great to hear from Nick's about that as well, because that's been really great to see how people can really get behind artists in that way as well. But and of course, during this whole period as well, it hasn't just been COVID. There's been what's happened in Beirut. There's been all sorts of things happening in terms of the knock-on effects. So things like suicide prevention, the charities that are involved in everything around COVID, not just the virus itself. Even like things like, there's a huge earthquake in Croatia that went almost unnoticed for most of the world because everyone was too busy talking about their own lockdowns. So there's been so many different cases of people pulling together and drawing attention to these altruistic causes and, building this philanthropy within dance music. It's been really inspiring to see. And
as I was saying with Nick just now, this whole situation's kind of galvanized our community. How do you feel our scene will look once this is all over?
Well, the once it's all over is quite key here, isn't it? Because when you count when it's all over, it's been really great hearing that, maybe, festivals will start happening again and maybe we can start going to clubs, and as long as we drink enough Listerine, it's going to be fine. But I think, not to make light of it, the optimism behind it all is, when we are allowed back into clubs again, I think there's going to be such a surge of positivity, which everyone is looking forward to. I don't think it's held anyone back. I don't think this is going to stop, 18 to 25-year-olds from going out and being, oh, what if I catch something? I think they're really raring to go and everyone's really excited about the release. And it's not just about the kind of going out to clubs and festivals again as well. It's about the new music and the new artists and the new DJs that we're going to be listening to as well. I mean, I spoke to Pioneer today and they've told me that they've sold more kit in April and May than they did the Christmas before. So there's this whole new raft of DJs and producers and artists that have been fine-tuning their music and their skills that didn't exist a year ago. So there's a lot of new talent to discover as well, which is really great.
Yeah, that's not a surprise actually. I think I've spoke to some guys at Native Instruments over the summer last year, and they were like, sales are just going through the roof at the moment for all of our equipment. It's not a surprise, is it? Like, people just want to invest in something, and as we've kind of discussed with other people, a lot of people have found like the space and the time to invest their energy into creative pursuits that they may have not found the time for before.
Yeah, and dance music's a fun hobby to have at home as well. I mean, do you really want to learn a second language when you could learn how to put reverb on a bass line?
Exactly. Thanks a lot, Nick. It's a pleasure chatting to you, and I hope we get to see each other in real life at some point. Actually, that goes for everyone on the panel. And that's the end of the panel now. And thanks to everyone who joined me and everyone at the end who was patient enough to stick around. And thanks for all making it so easy for me, because I was crapping my pants before I got onto this panel. I'd got no idea why. I can't explain why, but I was feeling a bit nervous about it. But everyone made it very easy for me. So thanks very much. And thanks for everyone who's been watching too.
Can we thank you, Marcus, as well?
Mwah.